Members of the jury, Arne Cheyenne Johnson sits before you, accused of diabolical deeds. He proclaims his innocence and swears the devil made him do it. The devil is forced to take the stand. The verdict belongs to you, members of the jury. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Court is now in session. Welcome to Everything Vaguely Paranormal. Hello, everybody. Look, I'm in the middle tonight.
How'd you manage that?
I just moved me over.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just kidding. Oh. Welcome back to another weekly episode of Everything Vaguely Paranormal. I am Blake Smith, and as always on my left and right, well, not always on my left and right, but I have with me Miss Shelley Pruitt. Dang, this is going to be hard, y'all. Miss Shelley Pruitt and Mr. Ryan Roberts. And first off, how are y'all doing tonight?
Great.
Child, it's hot.
Yeah.
Child, it is hot. It is so hot. It's unbelievably hot.
Yeah, I was standing outside earlier and the breeze started blowing. It wasn't helping. It was like standing in front of a friggin' hairdryer. So
yeah, you ain't lying.
It's hot. It's hot. But that's okay. We're inside of the nice air conditioning, and I'm ready to hear a story.
Well, I've got a story for y'all tonight. Now you two know, and I'll go ahead and put it out there for everybody else. Anything that has to do with the Conjuring series, Ed and Lorraine Warren, y'all know that I'm just like absolutely obsessed with. So That's what I am bringing to y'all tonight, and that is the story of the true story. Let me get that right. The true story of The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, which was released back in 2021. If you haven't seen it, it's fantastic. I love it. It's not like the other ones, I will say that, but it's got a great plot line. However, trust me, it's very Hollywoodized. So
we've had continuing on with our malicious men. We got old Arne Johnson in here, and this one involves demonic stuff, allegedly.
I know, because y'all are probably thinking, oh dear God, another true crime. Well, it is, but it's not.
It is, but it's not. Yeah. There's a horror movie made about it, and a book written about it, and
so there's a paranormal element to it. So I will do either of y'all know anything about it? I mean, bits and pieces maybe. Okay. Well, cool. Well, if y'all don't, then y'all are in for a treat. So before I get into basically the murder and the trial and all that stuff, I've got to set a couple of things up for you. So this story takes place in Brookfield, Connecticut. Now, Brookfield, Connecticut is this quintessential picturesque New England town. So when you think New England town, small, quaint, that's what this place is. I believe the town, even in today's time, has only like 17,000 people in it. So you can only imagine what it was like back when this took place. And we are in the summer of 1980, leading into the winter of 1980 and 81. And in Brookfield, Connecticut, lived the Glatzel family. Now, the Glatzel family members, and I do mean this in a very respectful way, didn't lead anything that was remarkable like about their lives that I could find prior to.
They were everyday normal people.
Yes, your normal average Americans.
Yes. Nothing extremely noteworthy. They live their lives just as we do. Couldn't find anything prior to the situation that had taken place that was to tell y'all about. So
they weren't nefarious.
No.
They went to church, said hello to their neighbors, bought their groceries, ate dinner, that kind of. They were regular. They
were
people.
Very Catholic, very New England.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes, very. I love the word quintessential. I'm going to say it again. Very quintessential American family of the time. So
somebody's been on dictionary.com. Go ahead.
How'd you know? No, it's
because I go there too.
It's thesaurus.com. Duh.
Get it right.
Yeah. Type it all out and go, no, I need another word. What's another? Oh, quintessential. That'll work. Because who uses quintessential in everyday talk? Not me. So no, I don't.
Broaden your horizons, expand your vocabulary, man. Come on.
No, that's boring. No, I'm just kidding.
Indubitably.
So this cute little quintessential New England family.
Yes. It includes mother and father, which is Carl Glatzel Sr. and Judy Glatzel. You have their oldest daughter, who is Debbie Glatzel. And actually, let me start popping up a couple of pictures here for you because I have a few pictures for you. You have their oldest daughter here, Debbie Glatzel. She's about 27 at the time the story is taking place. And you also have Carl Glatzel Jr., who's about 15. I don't have a picture of him, unfortunately. And you have David Glatzel, who's about 11 years old. So that's the Glatzel family. And a couple of other ones that are going to play into this story as I'm setting it up for you is Arne Cheyenne Johnson, who is Debbie's boyfriend, fiance. I found it kind of interchangeably at the time.
So Debbie's the oldest daughter, and and Arnie's her boyfriend.
Correct.
Okay,
correct.
Got it.
Yes. And so you have Arne Cheyenne Johnson, who's going to play a part into this story. And you also have Ed and Lorraine Warren, which we know a lot about Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yeah, we're kind of Ed and Lorraine Warren fans.
We are. But we are actually going to start with the two of them for anybody who doesn't really know their story. They're real quick, get them out of the way real fast, not to, that I don't want to talk about them. But we're going to do a complete different episode.
This isn't an Ed and Lorraine Warren episode. This is who they are and why they're important.
Just a brief overview.
Yeah, and so basically what you need to know about them is that Ed Warren was a self-proclaimed demonologist. And from what I understand, y'all tell me if I'm completely wrong with what I understand and what I've read and gathered just throughout all the history, he was the only one that the Catholic Church would recognize as a demonologist or I don't want to say exorcist, but...
He was not an exorcist.
Yeah.
But he did have quite a few people that he would perform rites and say prayers that were meant to curtail. Yeah. But if it was something very serious, he had an exorcist that he would recommend. Father Cook was one that he called on a lot to do exorcisms. But I do not believe he ever performed an actual exorcism. I believe he brought in the pros for that.
Yeah, I don't believe he did either.
Yeah, he was like Paranormal 911, basically. Like he did whatever he could to stave it off until they could actually get an approval from the Catholic Church to perform an exorcism.
And if it was nasty, people called Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yes, they did. Even certain like priests, like local priests, would recommend Ed and Lorraine Warren for certain things. So.
Yes. And so Lorraine Warren was clairvoyant and a light trance medium, and she would often assist Ed in a lot of his investigation, basically kind of give what I would like to say clarity, direction, or anything that was taking place in the location for him. Excuse me. And these two are considered by many, some, I guess you could say forefathers, foremothers of the paranormal, along with other notable names like Hans Holzer and people of that stature. Now, at the time that the story takes place, the Glatzels were in Brookfield, and the Warrens were in Monroe, Connecticut, which is only about 17 miles away. So you can kind of see that there's, I'm going to call it the Warren influence of the area. They're so close. They're obviously going to know who the Warrens are. So that's just a little brief recap for anybody who hasn't heard about Ed and Lorraine Warren. And the next person we'll delve into is Mr. Arne Johnson. And I unfortunately don't have any other pictures other than him being arrested by the police, except for one when he is much older, which I will throw up here in just a little bit. So even though the end of the story is about him, you got to have to understand where he came from and how he got involved into the Glatzel family as well. And again, all respect, he doesn't have normal, typical male of this time. He doesn't have anything noteworthy other up until this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so with him being Debbie's boyfriend, he's around 20 years old at this time, whereas Debbie is around 27. So there's a little bit of an age difference there. And Debbie states that the two had this chance meeting. Hear me out. Let me get through the story. Don't be throwing out negative comments before I get done. Debbie says they had like this chance meeting when she was 19 and he was 12. She knocked over I know, let me get through it.
Okay.
So the story goes, she knocked over a display case in the supermarket that she worked at, and he helped her pick it up. And for him, it was like this love at first sight type thing, even though she was a 19-year-old girl. He's 12, hormones are raging. I'm sure it was love at first sight. Now, her recognizing the age difference, she was like, no, hell no, not going to happen. We ain't doing all that. So what ends up happening, though, is just by chance, she becomes really good friends with his mother, Mary Johnson. And they would end up going on like picnics and stuff like that, just like girlfriends and hanging out and whatnot. And so it wasn't until the time that he was much older that he first asked Debbie out. And she says from there, it was like the two basically fell in love. So that's a little bit of their romance kindling. I know it sounds weird. 19 and 12.
Well,
but
they grew up together.
She held him off. She held him off till he was about 17.
Yeah.
So, which would have made her 24, something like that.
At 24, I had nothing in common with the damn 17-year-old.
No.
And at 17, I didn't have nothing in common with the damn 12-year-old. They were the ones that I started.
Hell no.
Oh my God.
Okay, we're not fixating on that. So,
I mean, but they grew up together. They knew each other.
They grew up together.
Lives.
They grew
and
up
you know
together.
what?
Like
Then she starts having picnics with his mama.
They became friends. That's the story. They became her and his mom, Mary Johnson, became friends. So,
why? Because she was their babysitter. Go ahead. Go on with your fabulous story. I'm gonna leave that there. Let the jury decide.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna leave that there.
So
I never dated any kid I ever babysat. Let's be real clear about that, because that is wrong. Anyway, continue on.
She never babysat him. I didn't say she babysat him.
I don't see any reason to become friends with somebody's mama unless you're either friends with their kid who's the same age, or you're one side or the other, or you're babysitting them.
Okay. We're talking. Okay.
Like I said, I'm going to leave that there.
We're going to move past. We'll be here all night, ladies and gentlemen. Ooh, look, good tea.
Continue on with your fabulous story. Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. So Arnie ends up dropping out of high school, and he ends up taking on these odd jobs for quick money. And that's really to help his mother make ends meet. Now at this time, Debbie's off at the Holiday Inn, and she's working as a pantry maid, and she's living in the Johnson's home so she could be closer to her job. And Mary Johnson ends up becoming ill and having to quit her job. And Arnie and Debbie are both they're forced to pick up the slack and help raising the children. And this pushes them into somewhat of like a makeshift marriage, if you will. You know, they're dating at the time. Mom comes sick. We got to take care of the kids. And so they're in this pseudo marriage.
Caregiver road.
Caregiver
roles. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And from that moment until where we're about to just jump right into, again, not much is known about their relationship. Nothing noteworthy. But we get to the main portion of the story. Now that you got a little bit of the backstory here, we're going to jump right into the main story. Now, this, as I said, picks up in the summer of 1980 into the winter of 1980 and 1981. And around July of 1980, when Arnie is now living at the Glatzels, him and Deb end up moving in with the Glatzels now. And they come across this adorable little house that's yellow and olive green shutters. And Debbie was like, oh, it's my dream home. Woo, yay. And as far as I understood the story, it's this newly acquired rental property. And they are there. They show up and they're going to clean it out. And one of the former tenants, and I have an issue with this. One of the former tenants left a waterbed in the master bedroom. I know. Number one, gross.
Yeah. First off, those things are a bitch to move. So that's just mean on their behalf. But
yeah. But secondly, like, why would you? No, somebody slept on that.
No.
But at the same time, I don't mess with anything anybody left behind in a previous house because you don't know what kind of juju that be having.
Out it goes.
Yeah, you're gonna be tossed to the curb. No, what does this family do? Instead, they're there cleaning, and everybody takes turn falling onto this waterbed and laughing and giggling at the undulating surface, and they're having a great time. And everybody except 11-year-old David Glatzel.
He's the one that's got some sense.
He's the one that's like, nope, I'm good. I'm not jumping on the lice-ridden bed or, anything like that.
Yeah.
So they get up, they have this wonderful family moment of jumping on somebody else's waterbed, and they go back to cleaning.
It's the simple things. It really is.
It really is. Yeah.
You ever sprung a leak in one of them water beds and woke up in a puddle of water and you weren't sure why there was water in the bed? You go, what the hell is this? Yeah, it might have happened to me once. Yeah.
Did I piss myself?
I was pretty sure it wasn't that, but I was real concerned as to why the bed was wet.
So again, after this, blah, blah, woo, we're jumping on the waterbed. The group gets back up and they go back to cleaning. And according to his David's mother, Judy, her and Debbie are taking down some curtains that were also left when she noticed that our son, David, looked to have been pushed and suddenly fell on the bed. Now, David tells them that what happened was allegedly that a little old man had appeared and pushed him onto the bed, terrifying him. And his vision included that this little old man that showed up showed himself as kind of like this demonic beast of sorts. He,
was those David's words?
Now,
demonic beast?
Beast, yeah, like dark, evil.
But those were
beast.
David's words,
Correct.
the child's
Correct.
words. Okay.
Correct.
And now he was known as a kid who, from what I remember, he was known as a kid who just he didn't really play around much like that. Like he was a very sweet, good-natured kid. And
but serious.
Very serious. But wasn't he in the home by himself whenever he was pushed? Like, wasn't he like
everything that I read and went in depth to? I found many sources that Judy herself said that her and Debbie were taking down curtains and she had witnessed it.
Okay.
So I know that the movie, we're going to do a little history versus Hollywood here. I know that the movie shows him to be in the house or in the room by himself or, something like that. And he is playing on the waterbed and whatnot. And that's when the thing grabs him from outside the waterbed. But the story from her says that she just witnessed him push and suddenly fall into the waterbed. And yes, it is his words where it is this beast, evil, dark beast of natures who also, and he says, muttered Latin and threatened to steal his soul.
Okay, so the child is 12 and the child knows what Latin sounds like, what Latin is, and knows the words demonic and beast and that kind of thing. That's oddly specific for a 12-year-old.
Yep.
But keep in mind, they are Catholic. They're devout Roman Catholics. So they are going to Catholic church, and I'm sure they know some Latin. So he's heard it before. So maybe he recognized a few words.
Yeah, but I can hear a word that sounds like Spanish, but it could be Portuguese. It could be something else because I'm not actually familiar with the word. I can make a guess as to what the language is, but I wouldn't know.
But if you grow up going to Catholic church and you're hearing Latin every Sunday, I'm sure he probably heard, or maybe that's why he said Latin.
Dominus Spiritus, yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, he could. I mean, that's a very valid point, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
He had warned, so jumping back to this real quick, he had warned the family that the little old man basically threatened to harm the Glatzels as well if they moved into this home. So this man appears, shoves him on the bed, frightening, terrifying, speaking Latin, this beast of some sorts, and, I'm going to harm your family, type of thing. And it terrifies him. Yeah, I don't think I would either.
Yeah.
And it terrifies him. Now the only thing is a lot of the group, siblings and stuff, thought that he's making this up because he don't want to clean this house. But Judy says she immediately believed him when he told her about this little old man's spirit. That there was no doubt, 100% immediately believed her son. And I tried to go more in depth as to why. And I think it just kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, Ryan, about type of the kid that he is. He wasn't one to really play around. He wasn't one to do these types of things. And so that led her to believe him straight out the gate. However, what I don't understand is that during this time also the family started to hear noises in the attic. This is the same time. He's experienced this. We're getting past this. He's kind of said what has happened, blah, blah, blah. And now they hear noises in the attic. But then again, it's around the property. Squirrels, mice, rats,
raccoons,
whatever.
Anything.
Yeah. But it's just very convenient.
And they're having to clean it out from the previous. And we all know that on those days, because we've all had to move locations. You are busy. You are moving. You are trying to hurry up. You're trying to get this done. And the kid's like, Mom. You're like, okay, okay, honey. Yeah. Oh, really? Scary man? Okay. Mom, you'll take care of it later. And you keep going on about your business. Not you're dismissing them, but it's just kind of like, okay, this is a little bit fantastical, but you know what? I'll address it. But we got a lot of things to do right now. So, okay. So maybe she believed him, but maybe she might have thought maybe he was just scared because they were moving. I don't know.
Anxiety of some sort of a kid, or something that's just he's causing it to manifest in his mind, so to speak.
Or he thinks he saw it, or he imagined it, or because he's not familiar, he walked by the bathroom glass and saw his reflection and thought it was something else, Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, if the type of kid he was, if that kid is all of a sudden acting strange, I mean, like, I can see your point where you just be like, I'm busy, I'm doing whatever. I mean, go about your business, but still kind of keep that in the back of your mind, because like if your kid who has never done this before starts acting strange all of a sudden and says, hey, listen to me, this is what I saw. I don't know. Yeah, so maybe that's why she held so much stock in what he said, because he was just not that type of kid.
Yeah.
So
they go back home. After this little ordeal, David reiterates his story again and telling his mom again, about this little old man that had appeared to him in a plaid t-shirt, elbow is torn on the t-shirt, pointing a finger at him, basically being like, beware, don't move in here, beware. And from David's words, allegedly after that, the old man made another appearance that night, this time in the Glassell home. And this time he looked a lot different than the previous time. His skin appeared burnt and black, kind of looking like he had been through a fire or something. And the way he described his feet, he said his feet were bare, and what he saw down there was feet like that of a deer. So in other words,
he had cloven hooves then.
So in other words, hoofed. But that's the way he described it, feet like a deer, not like a goat. Like we normally hear like a goat, or something like that. But he described it as like a deer. And that's really kind of where the story just kicks into freaking overdrive after that. He immediately, his condition immediately begins to worsen. And things start happening to him in the daytime as well. And it's about the next 12 days that there's like a laundry list of things that he starts to exhibit. And those include, he would writhe uncontrollably in his bed. And family members said that they would hold him down and it would take all their strength. We're talking about an 11-year-old boy. The family members said that they would hold him down. It would take all their strength to hold him in bed. He began having night terrors. He would shout obscenities and scream for no reason. He would receive strange scratches and bruises from nowhere. His mother described that David would pull at invisible hands that appeared to be choking him. And she had witnessed this multiple times. And after that, he would have red marks that didn't make sense. If you're grabbing like this, your finger, the marks would be up and down.
Yeah.
They were going across.
They were horizontal, not vertical.
Right. Correct. They're like this and not like this. So he's grabbing, and then these marks would appear around his neck.
Doing this.
Wow.
So he would flinch in pain as if he's being stabbed by a knife, is what people would say, which I find very interesting foreshadowing for later on. Judy says that he would attack her. He would spit on her. He would kick her. And I found it oddly interesting that he would squeeze her around the bust area is what she said. He also allegedly attacked his grandmother with a knife. There were no reports of an injury, but I guess maybe came at her with a knife. his eyes would roll in the back of his head, and his face would contort right before he would be taken over, I guess you could say. And he wasn't the only one. Family members would also say that there was stuff that would take place in the house as well. They came to call this thing, which just bothers me. Why you name it, I don't know. It's not a freaking pet. Sorry, it's just not. But they ended up calling this thing the Beast or the Master.
Whoa, why the second one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of giving that thing more power.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You're acknowledging it, and you calling it the Master. I mean, I don't know how to give it any more power than that. Other than calling it your God. I mean, that's basically the same thing. It's interchangeable. Why in the world would they have done that? The FBI is always quick when there's like a serial killer that they're like, don't give them a nickname. Don't give them that kind of acknowledgement. Don't give them that kind of power. Don't give them that kind of, don't feed that ego. Same thing with the bad spirit. You don't.
No, that was
really just don't do it. You just don't do it. We'll leave it at that. You just don't do it.
No.
So they would claim that things would happen around the house to them or around them, like clothes would be dumped out of drawers, makeup would be thrown and scattered across the floor in bathrooms, plates in the house would levitate, books would move on their own. Cookware is said that it went up to the ceiling and actually like left marks in the ceiling, like with food inside it. Like it would leave stains on the ceiling from being levitated so high. There's toy dinosaurs that would walk on their own. The two that I found really interesting, they say that the Beast or the Master, whatever they called it, actually is said to have called David's brother, Carl Jr., on the phone, and all he told him was beware. Like called him on the phone. So I know we hear about this phenomenon where it's like somebody passes and then somebody gets a missed call from that person after this person passes, So I'm thinking something along that lines, that type of phenomena where this entity has called Carl Jr. somewhere, maybe at home. I don't know. I don't know what it is. And because we're talking about a 15-year-old kid. Unless he's at work. We also are talking about the 70s too. Well, the 80s. The early 80s. So he could be at work as well. Who knows? I'm thinking along that lines of phenomena.
Now, do we mean like because we know that his younger brother is going through this and his younger brother is possessed or whatever. Are we saying that he used like him as a conduit to call his older brother, or that whatever was
or
there,
this
he
was
got like
literally
a phone call?
audio phenomenon?
Yeah.
I could not find, and I looked for it, I could not find straight up that David was being used as a conduit.
Okay.
Just the old boy started getting phone calls.
Just the old boy started getting phone calls.
Okay.
So I'm going along the lines of an audio phenomenon.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to go on the lines of.
Okay.
And the only other person to ever, to claim to actually have ever seen the Beast is Debbie Glatzel herself. Her story is she was in bed one night, and allegedly out of the floor, she saw this green hand rise up and come into the bed to attack her. And with this was also the face of the Beast. She said that it was this face with jagged teeth, coal black eyes, and it had horns and pointed ears. To me, it sounds very typical of
sounds like a gargoyle to me.
Yeah.
Sounds like a description of the jagged teeth, the horns, the pointed ears. That sounds like one of those gargoyles you see perched up with the wings on the top of. Okay.
I think to me it sounds like, our everyday drawings of Satan, if you think about it. Pointed ears, horns, jagged teeth, maybe an elongated face or something like that.
Yeah.
And so with all of this going on, obviously the family, Debbie's the only one that was alleged to ever have seen the Beast other than little David. And so the family is like, you know what? Okay, screw this. We got to have watch over him 24/7. So the family starts taking turns, staying up with him and keeping watch over him, make sure, he doesn't spaz or convulse himself into, die.
Doesn't hurt himself.
Doesn't hurt himself.
Yeah.
A full blown on seizure or something. So that's when, during all of that Arne Johnson starts to come in and be more present because he wants to help the family with David. So he would join in holding him down. It said that this entity would attempt to throw David across the room, and Arne was the one that was strong enough to hold him down. He would
How old
hold
is Arnie at this point? 17,
Arnie,
18, 19?
Arnie is 20 at this time.
He's 20 at this time. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So we're talking about a 20-year-old versus an 11-year-old, but we're also talking possible 11-year-old who may be possessed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a lot of strength.
Yeah, that's a lot of strength. So he would also hold his crucifix to David's head as well, because Arnie had a crucifix that he would hold onto his forehead to help hold him down as well. Which, hey, I have a belief in that. I think if you're using religious iconology or iconography, whatever it's called, iconology. It's been a long day, guys. Sorry.
You are using religious iconography.
Thank you.
Yeah,
those are the items.
Yes. However, he did one little thing that is, I'm going to go ahead and go on record and say, stupid. Stupid. Because in all of this, that he would be holding David down and putting the crucifix on his forehead and stuff like that, he would look at David and talk to the entity and say, I'm not afraid of you. I'll fight you.
I'd like to be mad at him, but I might have said that a time or two.
I mean, I have been in the room when Shelley walked back in and said, listen, motherfuckers.
Oh, yeah. I've seen it.
Yeah. But David's response to that was David looked at him and he smiled and he said, they're laughing at you. So.
And now, Arnie, he's not an exorcist. He is not. Now, let me tell you, if somebody's talking in strange voices and they are obviously possessed, I'm not saying that. I'm going, you know what? You be cool. I'm going to call a priest. I'll be right back. I'm not going to scream at that. There's a difference. If some little negative energy running around in a building act like an ass, I'm going to say something too. But if there's somebody that's like, no, I'm going to call the people who know what they're doing.
Well, I think it's just like a natural response for Arnie, because Arnie is not versed in any sort of rites of exorcism. He's not versed in any paranormal things.
Playing.
Yeah, like he thinks that the only way he knows how to respond to something like that is hurting someone that isn't his family, is trying to challenge it in that way.
He's going into protector mode. That's what it is. That's the only thing. He sees this thing that's picking on an 11-year-old boy. He thinks, I'm a 20-year-old man. Come on, I'll fight you. Take me on.
But he's walking into a gunfight with a rubber band.
Well, and we understand that, but in that moment, not being, as Ryan said, being versed in this stuff, that may not have even clicked in his mind.
Yeah, I mean, because
be like, I need to shut my mouth.
Yeah, because I mean, he wasn't a dumb person by any means, but he was just a very like simple, average, everyday, like good, clean American boy, and he doesn't know anything about this sort of thing. I'm sure he went to church and heard about it, but like when he's faced with it, the only thing that he knows
to put the crucifix on the forehead.
But it's a Catholic family. It's a religion that they're raised in.
So if he knows that much, you should know you don't mess with that.
I'm sure that he probably in the back of his mind knows that, but think about this too. He's sitting here seeing this kid be attacked daily and nightly, like he's there. And so the only way that he knows how to defend or to do anything to help this kid is like, hey, all right, let's go. So that's the only thing I can figure.
So he jumps up, he challenges his dad. I'll fight you. Come on.
And so what they decide to do after all this, because nothing is working, the family decides it's time to call in a priest, just as you said, Shelley. It's time to call a priest in to come bless the home and to, get rid of this thing however they can.
Yeah, so, time for an exterminator.
So they reach out. They ask for the priest to come. Priest comes. Priest actually tells them, hey, reach out to these people over here. These people over here happen to be Ed and Lorraine Warren. So there is a very good, well-working connection, is what Lorraine said with that. This pastor that referred them, I guess you could say, worked on another case with them prior to. And sorry, guys, 1 second. We've got somebody trying to show their ass in the comments.
Oh.
And
another bot, huh?
Yeah, no worries. We'll just get rid of them real quick. I can. Yeah. Anyways, I'll go on with the story. My bad.
Well, you go ahead and handle that, because we can definitely talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
So they bring in Ed and Lorraine Warren, who so for this priest to have contacted Ed and Lorraine Warren, means that this priest actually saw something that he, and I'm sure it's a he, I'm not trying to be sexist on this, more than likely it was a he, deemed something of concern. And I know that Ed and Lorraine Warren had a direct line to a priest who did exorcisms and stuff like that. So I know that you have to have approval and that you have to have a priest that will vouch that this needs to be done to get approval. So was this priest perhaps doing a step, like this is step one? I'm going to call them. They're going to make the recommendation. I'm going to go off what they find and make my recommendation so we can get an exorcist over here. Is that kind of the logical stair steps we're going through here?
Yes, that's the logical stair steps that I'm believing it to be. Now, when they reached out to Ed and Lorraine Warren said that they were contacted because they, quote, believed that weird phenomena were surrounding their child. That was the reason that they gave to Ed and Lorraine Warren. So, of course, what did they do? I mean, they go and they are going to help this kid. And like I said, I think I said the Conjuring House was the case earlier that I was trying to talk about, that the priest, so supposedly, allegedly, not going to say that it was, allegedly that Ed and Lorraine Warren and this priest were had worked
connected in that way.
Connected on, yes.
Yeah.
So what it gets real tricky here because the Glatzels and the Warrens basically say the priest was contacted, the church was contacted because they believe that something was going on with David, and that it was the church that came in and was like, hey, we're going to need proof of this, just like you were saying. I don't know. Oh, God, there's so much convolution. Like, it is very convoluted here because the family also was very into the movie The Exorcist. They had all watched it together.
Yeah, but that came out in 1971, I believe, and it caused women to faint and go into labor and people to vomit and leave the theaters. And it was basically a cultural movement towards the devil.
Yeah.
In the 70s into the 80s.
And it was. And both Debbie and Judy supposedly had either been to and or heard one of the Warrens' lectures. That they, were famous for giving about demons and all of that kind of stuff. So my opinion, that may play a little into some of this, but I could not ever connect the freaking dots. Like,
Well, I don't believe you can open yourself up to possession just by watching a movie because that is fictionalized. Yeah. It's actors. There is no one that is actually, you're not seeing anything that's actually truly happening. So yeah, and even I've heard lots of lectures. I watch a lot of people's things, and I don't think that that's opening me up to anything. I think I literally have to be physically present. So for them to kind of go, oh, you went there, therefore it's your fault. The devil came in the house. No.
Yeah, yeah. So the Warrens come in. We'll just get to that part. The Warrens come in, and some of the claims that they said was Lorraine had said that she had witnessed a black mist materialize next to David, which to her was an apparent indication of a malevolent entity. Judy and Debbie relayed the afflictions that David was experiencing, which included the invisible choking hands, to Lorraine. And Lorraine started to watch him and reported that he had levitated in front of her, ceased breathing for some time, and even demonstrated the supernatural ability of precognition, which, for those who don't know, that's the foreknowledge of an event. Especially in my opinion, kind of like a paranormal kind,
foretelling of the future.
Yeah. And that precognition that Lorraine specifically talks about comes back into play later on in the story, because what he had a vision of, we'll call it a vision. What he had a vision of is what ends up playing out later on. And she actually calls the Brookfield Police Department and says,
who is she?
Lorraine
Warren?
Lorraine, okay. Yes. Calls the Brookfield Police Department and says, we have a situation over here at the Glassell home that we believe there's a dark entity, if you will, or I don't know exactly. I'm paraphrasing here. And that it is getting dangerous. And she told them what was said.
She called the cops on the ghost?
Well, I think it was more or less to...
Call the law. There's a demon in the room.
I think it was more or less to...
let them know strange shit was going on.
Yeah, and give them an idea. Hey, if something weird fucking happens, you know.
And what's the cops going to do about it?
I don't know.
I mean, just so maybe they have it on their books, be like, well, somebody called and talked about this earlier, so maybe we can contact her to see if that's a
Now,
lead.
I'll
I don't
tell
know.
you, True Crime 101 says somebody's setting up an alibi for somebody else. I'm going to let you know there's some weird stuff going on just in case you hear anything. Bye.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
That could be true. So as they get there, David starts to exhibit a lot more signs of demonic possession. He begins growling. He begins hissing, speaking in otherworldly voices. He would recite.
that's a terrible picture.
I know, but I'm going to show it anyways. He would recite passages from the Bible, and including Paradise Lost, which, for those that don't know, Paradise Lost, that's a poem that's basically about Adam and Eve were banished from
Getting kicked out of the Garden of Eden.
Yep, Garden of Eden. So, one of our viewers said, I would love to hear the audio for that report. Yeah, me too. For the Lorraine phone call.
Joke.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, we're over here and this shit's getting real.
Send the law.
Yeah. So after the Warrens come in, remember, we're only 12 days into this. Okay.
Yeah, this is pretty.
So in 12 days, there's been enough things going on that not only have they decided they've been holding this child down. This child is doing all kinds of crazy things. They have called in a priest. The priest has gone, nuh-uh, and called in the Warrens. And now the Warrens have called the cops to go, listen, some crap's getting crazy over here. And now the next step is what?
So the next step is for portions of the people living in the house to move out. So basically what happens with all the Warrens, I'm going to wrap that up just real quick so I don't leave you hanging, because it doesn't play a whole lot into later on portion of the story, but I don't want to leave you hanging while you're waiting. Basically what ends up happening is there's this back and forth between the Glatzels and the church. One says, okay, he never had the full and formal rite of exorcism performed on him. The other one says, yeah, but we requested it. And the church comes back and says, yeah, but you didn't submit to the psychological test. And Judy Glatzel says, no, we went to a psychologist like you asked. They said they wanted to see the whole family. That's supposed to be set up by you. And so therefore the whole thing just kind of fell apart at that point, because there was this tennis match, if you will, back and forth between the family and the church of trying to get a priest out there to perform an exorcism. And it just never came to fruition because I guess basically you want to boil it down to miscommunication.
Somebody dropped the ball.
Somebody dropped the freaking ball. I mean, that's basically what it kind of came down to. So Debbie and Arnie are like, you know what? Shit's getting a little too real. We're getting out to our own place. And they end up taking up residence in an apartment that's owned by Alan Bono. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. He is Debbie's employer at the Brookfield boarding kennels. Brookfield boarding kennels. Yeah, I say that 10 times fast. Where she worked as a dog groomer. And this is the building. Of course, it's now a different business, but this is the building that we're speaking of.
Mm-hmm.
And give you a real brief overview of who Alan Bono is. Alan Bono, he's a new resident of Brookfield. He's only been there for about 6 months. He's around 40 years old. He's the short, stocky, tan complexion guy. Loves to talk about himself, where he's been. What's up, Ryan?
And he's Australian for Shelley.
He is Australian. And
he's
let me get to it.
I'm sorry, I didn't know
A
you had
short,
that.
fat Australian. That would be like, if you put him in a police officer uniform, that's my dream man.
He loved to talk about himself, where he'd been, what he'd done. He is Australian. He did live in Florida for some time, and he moved up there to help take care of the board and the kennels because his sister asked him to. So they move into that. That's when, after that, throughout all these investigations with the Warrens, it's alleged that, supposedly, from Ed Warren, that David was infested with 43 demonic spirits and 2 devils.
What's the difference?
I guess we're talking about the whole hierarchy here.
Yeah, first of all, I believe there's only one head honcho devil, and that's Lucifer himself. And everything else is demonic minions, right? There's one head honcho.
That's but I'm reading what I have found.
Well,
that's my belief that there's one head honcho and everybody else works for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said, but maybe Ed knows something we don't. I don't know.
And when did they have time to count 43?
I don't know.
I mean, this kid was switching voices like Ryan does when he gets drunk. I mean, it had to be, what the hell?
From what I saw, it was whenever that entity showed up into the house and was attacking the little boy. He said that he brought other entities with him to keep watch over the family, so they couldn't do something without the beast or whatever knowing. And that the reason one of the experts I was watching speculated that the reason they used numbers was because they didn't want to give their actual names so that they could actually be banished from the home.
Because once the name is known, it can be removed, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah.
That's the working theory, anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So of course David. That's the picture that I showed earlier. David is subjected to 3 lesser exorcisms, if you will, but never the full and formal rite of an exorcism, as I was saying earlier. Now, during one of these lesser exorcism, Arne is present, and Lorraine, I believe it's for Lorraine. Lorraine and Judy Glatzel both say that Arne coerced and egged the demon on and said, "Come into me, leave the little lad alone." Which, again, is something you obviously never do, ever.
No, just don't ever do that.
And it's not that it's reported that he didn't say this just once, but he said it over and over.
He continued to provoke it.
Mm-hmm.
So what ends up happening after that? Well, after a few days after he's egged this demon on and told it to come into him, he's actually kind of not himself physically attacked, but he's attacked in a way. Basically, I'll just tell you what happens. It's kind of vicious, if you will. Allegedly, the demon took over his control of his car and forced him into a tree. So the demon has forced him to wreck his car. Now, he is unharmed during this wreck, and he walks away. But after this incident, he decides, you know what? I'm going to confront it again. I'm done. I'm going to confront it. So he heads back over to the property, the rental property where the little old man first appeared. And he walks to the back to where an old well is on the property that supposedly housed the demon.
A fucking well again.
So yes, we're going to break from the story real quick because we're going to fucking talk about this. If you've listened to us before, I think now we've mentioned this. At least this got to be 5th time at least in our episodes, that where we go when these negative and dark entities want to present themselves, there always seems to be a well on the property.
An underground battery source.
Yeah.
We've got Hill House Manor in Gainesville,
where we saw someone physically be taken over that we had to remove from the house.
You have Bobby Mackey's. You have the Conjuring House. You have Haunted Hill House and Mineral Wells. And I know that there's other ones that I'm probably not thinking of off the top of my head. But what the hell is it with dark and evil entities and these freaking wells? I think, Shelly, you're onto something. An underground battery source.
I'd love to take complete credit for it, but I'm going to actually quote Keith, who in the Haunted Hill House Manor, he says, you have a battery with a beacon. Since a lot of wells have limestone around it, you have a battery with a beacon. And I think that is a brilliant analogy. It's being fed. It's got, limestone, which conducts the energy and a constant movement underneath there. And again, I'd love to take credit for that, but that was brilliantly explained by Keith. You have a battery with a beacon, and
I think you're 110% right on that. I think that's exactly what it is, because it's not just attracting whatever. Because there are hauntings in these places that aren't necessarily negative, but whatever it is, it's also attracting everything to it, positive and negative, to feed off of in order to manifest itself.
And once there's energy there, and as long as it's being fed, we always say that we like to go in before, we really get investigating, and we call it kind of stirring things up. We're not trying to piss things off. We're trying to, hey, here's a little energy from us. We want to talk to you. We're going to come back later. We kind of want to put a little energy into the building. Again, we say stir shit up, but we're not really trying to piss anything off. We're
Right.
trying to give it a little energy to, you know, be able to talk, communicate, that kind of thing. But if you have something that's a constant feeding of energy, you don't got to feed it. You walk in, it's fed.
Yeah.
It just it decides how it's going to communicate if it so chooses with you. Yeah, I don't know what it is, all these wells and crap.
I don't know, but every time that we hear of one, you know, when we're trying to look, when we're trying to look for a different location to go investigate at, and then they're like, "Oh, there's an old well on there." I mean, I know all three of our eyes are like,
"Let's go.
We got to go."
Let's
because
go
every place that we've been to that's had a well has just produced for us.
It's got something funky going on,
and produced in both positive and negative manifestations.
Yes, absolutely.
Like really good evidence. But there's usually and Ryan, would you agree that every place we've been that has it, because like Ryan and I've been a couple places that you haven't,
right.
that when there is a well, that the positive manifestations get bigger, but so do those negative ones. And those negative ones, if they're a little nasty, they actually seem extra nasty. You know, just because when we at Bobby Mackey's, when we got Carl, I didn't feel like Carl was upset at all. I felt like Carl was very, you know, it was just really pretty calm. And he came through pretty good, especially for you. But then we got down there with those mob bosses. That scared me.
Just very heavy and very, you can feel it, around that well. So, but I don't know what it is about a damn well, but I guess, you're right. It's a battery source. I think that's the main.
I think that's a wonderful theory. Yeah. And again, shout out to Keith for that.
Yeah, a battery attached to a beacon.
Yeah, with Haunted Sky Paranormal, shout out to Keith, because that's an excellent definition. Because I think that's exactly what it is, and I think that it's. I almost want to classify them as some sort of possible portal, because I don't know if really necessarily these things that are that negative and that evil. I'm trying to think of history of locations of where some of these are at. And sometimes they don't really quite make sense to me. Now, I know certain, murders and stuff have taken place at some of these locations that have a well, but there's nothing that to my knowledge that I have seen or heard or with my own eyes or ears that alludes to anything being summoned, or anything like that.
I think again, it's a power source, and again, there's a lot of reports of things happening near rivers and things like that. If there's, I think that has to do with the flowing water, the energy source. And that if there is something that again, if you believe that spirits are transient, they can travel, they can be wherever it is they want to be, or entities can travel and be wherever they want to be. Maybe they just get, maybe they just like, hey, I kind of dig this spot. I'm going to hang out for a while. And they're getting something to feed them. Yeah. I don't know. I think the fact that they have food, it's kind of like feeding a cat. Okay, he's been fat, he's been fed. Now he's going to keep coming back.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, if there's no reason to leave that area because it is constantly getting fed, why leave? Just stay there and get more powerful.
Very true.
Just a theory.
So Arnie walks onto this property and he heads back to where the old well is at because he's going to confront this demon. He's done. He's like, bitch, bring it. That's basically where he's at. He goes over to the well. He peers down into the well and he sees the entity that has been possessing David, that he's been taunting.
Oh.
And he peers into its eyes, and that is the moment that Arnie says that's the last lucid moment he has. That if he had to pinpoint it, that's the moment he became fully possessed. Go, Shelley.
Wow.
So did he see it, or was he viewing his own reflection as he was being taken over?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Round of applause on that one. Hell yeah, that's a good question.
That's the first thing I thought. I'm like, wait a minute, because you should be able to physically see it coming up, but whenever you look down, if there's water in the bottom, well, you're going to see your own reflection first. So could that be the demon actually possessing him? He's actually seeing his own face as he's taken over.
Damn, Shelley, props. Mad fucking props on that. I didn't even think of that. My mind didn't even go to that. Yeah, no,
that was the first thing I thought.
I don't know why.
See, because we have a well on our property. There's a well on my property.
Yeah.
So.
And see, that's why we make a really good trio here, because you think of things that me and Ryan don't.
Well, there's always got to be one oddball, right?
Yeah, right. Hate to say it, but it's usually Shelley. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's totally cool. I'm totally cool with that. It's completely true.
We're all a little oddball in our own right. So,
so he sees what he thinks is a demon looking back at him, and
Correct.
he remembers nothing after that.
He remembers nothing after that.
And that leads more credibility that he saw his own face change, and that was the moment he was becoming possessed. He was actually seeing himself because he doesn't remember anything.
He doesn't remember anything. That's very true.
I remember somebody who got jumped that didn't remember anything until he hit the front door.
Yep. I remember that too, as well. Scariest freaking night of investigating for me. So it's after this that now they've moved into the new apartment that's owned by Alan Bono, and Debbie is working for Alan Bono at the boarding kennels, and Debbie starts to notice in their new apartment that Arne starts acting strange. He starts falling into these trance-like states where he would growl and snarl, but have no memory of them. Around the fall of this same year, they went back to this rental property house that they never moved into, and we're looking out the window for a moment, and all Arne said Why'd
they go back?
I don't know.
They knew.
I have no idea. Maybe they were like, let's go see the house we never going to get to live in.
Let's see if it's better now.
Why? Why would you like you were told, you know what happened at your mom's house? You saw what transpired. Why the fuck would you go back there?
I don't know. So they go back and they're staring out this window inside, and all Arne says is, there he is, the beast. There he is.
Oh my Lord.
And he began to growl. And Debbie immediately slaps him. And nothing happens. And she slaps, and this is Debbie telling this story. She slaps him again, and he ends up kind of coming around. I guess she knocked the shit out of him, basically. And she pinpoint that as the moment that she knew that the demon had gotten into Arne and was no longer in David. On top of that, there's 5 separate other moments that she realizes that fuck, he's possessed, so to speak. She doesn't ever tell like the entire story, all of the stories, but what she does talk about is she says that there's one where he wakes her up in the middle of the night and he stands there for a minute, and all he says is he looks at her and goes, "Go to bed." After she's been
like,
woken
bitch,
up.
I'm in bed.
I know. You woke me up.
And then he walks away and he punches this trunk that's in the room and screams something about hell. That was one of them. Another one, he was joining the entire family at mass, and all of a sudden he yelled out and stood up, "Son of a bitch, I want to get out of here," and left. And then the day that Debbie heard 2 voices coming out of Arnie's mouth at the same time.
Oh, wow.
And that was the day that Alan Bono would be killed. And so that day, we get to February 16th of 1981. So now we're about 6 months-ish later now. David Glatzel still ain't had a full formal rite of exorcism, by the way. Just going to throw that out there. We're 6 months later.
So the child is still suffering, even though Arne has challenged it, said, "Come into me." The child is actually still suffering?
From what I understood is it lessened as it overtook him. It's almost like, I guess you could, what do they say? When one supreme rises, the other one falls?
It was like the energy was being siphoned off towards Arne. But the child was still suffering, but not to the level that little Dave had been suffering.
Correct.
So
David.
Little David. Okay.
So we get to February 16th of 1981, and this account that I found is from Wanda Johnson, who is Arnie's sister. Wanda Johnson is with Arne and Debbie the entire day. Well, after Arne calls in sick. Arne calls in sick that morning to his job at Right Tree Service, complaining of a sore throat, and he ends up coming to the Brookfield boarding kennels to join Wanda, who's 15 at the time, his other sister Janice, who's 13, Debbie, and their 9-year-old cousin Mary. So they're all there. And the day went on normally. But Alan Bono had invited Debbie and Arne out to lunch at a local bar that was called the Mug and Munch. And he proceeded to drink heavily at this. And so
was he known to be a drinker?
From what I gathered, yeah.
Okay. That wasn't necessarily unusual. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he was known to be a drinker, from what I gathered.
Yeah, now, because him and the landlord kind of partied it up a lot too. They were drinking buddies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So after lunch, Bono, Debbie, and Arne, they go back to the boarding kennels. And Debbie resumes her job where, again, nothing remarkable happened until a little bit later on. Now, at some point later in the afternoon, Arne is asked to fix Bono's stereo, which he does. And Bono, completely intoxicated at the time, decides to blast it full volume. And Wanda even said, I mean, it was rattling nerves at that point, not just windows. But so Debbie ends up going, hey, girls, you know, the little girls are there. Let's go for pizza. I'll get you some pizza because they hadn't had lunch. So she takes them out to pizza. But Wanda says the entire time they were out, they were being rushed back to the kennel because Debbie said she sensed tension in the air. And so
the two drunk dudes were getting irritated with each other. Right.
Pretty much.
They were about to play whose dick's bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So when they return, Bono, again, very intoxicated, he urges all the girls upstairs to his apartment. And there he proceeds to turn on the TV, just like the stereo, and blares it. And he begins to punch his fist into his palm at the girls over and over again, just like this. Threatening them, I guess. Well, I would take it as a threat.
I would take it as a threat as well.
Mm-hmm. And
this is entirely out of the ordinary for him because, by all accounts, he was a good person.
Yes. And so Debbie's like, what the fuck? She's like, everybody out. Everybody go downstairs. And everybody starts to move downstairs. Janice and Wanda make it downstairs. And as Mary's leaving, little 9-year-old Mary, he grabs her arm and will not let go. And Wanda and Janice run downstairs, alert Arne, who's heading out to the car. Arne turns around. He comes back upstairs and confronts Bono and says, with Wanda in tow, confronts Bono and says, let her go. And he drops her. And Mary leaves down the stairs. Wanda is standing right next to Arne at this point. And Alan's still punching his fist into his palm. And she says that the two men just started to face off at that point, just
staring each other down
at that point. And Wanda said no matter how much she tugged on Artie to get him to go, could not get him to move. And Debbie's still there. She's attempting to mitigate the situation by she gets in between the two of them. And
yeah, that's never a good idea.
Yeah. And so as Wanda's trying to pull Arnie away, he's not moving. Debbie's in between. Somehow Debbie slips out of in between the men, and Arnie begins to growl like an animal. And he produces a 5-inch pocket knife, and he begins to stab Bono repeatedly.
Holy shit.
And Wanda...
A 5-inch pocket knife.
5-inch pocket knife. So you're talking...
About like that?
That's a pretty sizable pocket knife.
Pretty sizable one. I mean, 2 inches deep could do some pretty damn good damage.
Mm-hmm. And a normal pocket knife between 2 and 3 inches?
I think it's about 2 to 3 inches.
About like that?
Yeah.
It's a little shorty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Wanda says at that point, everything just stopped. And Arnie just walked away. Just in this catatonic state. He didn't look left or right. He didn't freak out. Nothing. He was in a catatonic state. He walked away into the woods, never looked back, staring straight the entire time. Never flinching, nothing. Just walked. And Alan, she said, Alan actually kind of stood there, still punching his fist into his hand for a couple of seconds, until he fell face first into the ground. Wow. And paramedics were called. He was rushed to the hospital. He ended up dying. What ended up happening was he had 4 or 5 tremendous wounds that were mostly to his chest, and one that stretched from his stomach to the base of his heart.
Oh, so he gutted him.
He gutted him.
Gutted him like he was gutting a deer.
Yeah. Yeah.
That'd almost be pelvis bone to breastplate. Yeah. That's,
almost.
Yeah. But he would have had to have pulled up and angled up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so he dies later on from his injuries. Bono does in the hospital. Arnie is discovered 2 miles away from the site of the killing, still in a catatonic state, with no memory of what had just occurred. And that's why I like to show the clip from the actual movie. You know, I don't have a picture, obviously, of Arne Johnson with blood on his, shirt or whatnot. But if y'all seen the movie, you know the clip of the actor walking away with the glazed over eyes and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's very true to what Wanda says. He was in a catatonic state. He didn't, nothing. And he was found over 2 miles away.
And it was a paramedic that found him, I believe, too, that found him, like, because he was kind of driving along and he found him, and he said that he got out and grabbed him. He said he never felt threatened by him. He just seemed like he was just in a daze and couldn't figure out what was going on with him. So
and that was the actual first unlawful killing in Brookfield, Connecticut. So now we have a murder. Well, shit, Arne doesn't have any memory of it. Must not have been him. Well, who the hell was it? Well, then we get into his arrest and trial. So the day after the killing takes place, Lorraine Warren calls the police again and says Arne was possessed at the time of the killing. He was possessed. And that kind of gets out, and this media blitz happens that is just fueled partly by the Warrens' agents, because they had all of a sudden just promised lectures, a book, and movie that's detailing all these gruesome facts about this murder. I mean, we're talking like the day or days after the case, or after the killing. So yeah, somebody trying to make them a nice little paycheck.
Yeah, maybe their intentions were not altogether altruistic in helping others.
Yeah. And so he's obviously immediately arrested. He's put in jail, and he doesn't begin. His trial actually does not begin until October 28th of 1981. So we're later on in the year. And it
pretty damn close to Halloween.
Yeah. And it becomes known very quickly as very quickly as the demon murder trial.
And that all comes from Lorraine Warren saying that he was possessed. Is that correct?
That's what I'm taking it as. Yes. Because he hires a lawyer. The lawyer's name is Martin Manella. And he's obviously setting out to prove his innocence. He interviews the Warrens. And they relay the message again that Arne was in fact possessed at the time of the killing.
And they were not present for the murders. They had not been a witness to what was leading up to it or Arnie's behavior leading up to it. But based on what they'd seen with the little kid David, because they'd never actually seen Arne, right? But they had seen David and they knew what David did.
Correct.
And now they heard that Arne had said, "Come at me, bro." Even though they'd never talked to Arne, they're saying, "Oh yeah, Arne had to have the devil in him." Right?
No, they knew Arne. Because they were present at several exorcisms and the Warrens came in and like they had talked with him and they knew him to be a good person, and the family all knew him to be a good person, so they knew who he was.
And Lorraine was witness to him saying, "Come into me, leave the little lad alone."
Right, but what I'm saying is that they weren't present for Arnie stuff. They were present for little David stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, true. Yeah.
So
I got you.
So the Warrens had never witnessed what had happened to Arnie, but yet they're jumping in. They'd seen what had happened to little David. They were present where he said, "Come at me," bro, whenever little David was being exercised, but they had not been witness to the murder. They were not present for the murder. They had not been witness to how Arnie was behaving the weeks leading up to. Okay, so they're just jumping and going, "Gotta be a demon."
So they get interviewed by his lawyer, and they obviously say, "Yeah, he was possessed, and we can prove it," is what they say. That's what they say. However, I'm not even going to go down that route because I wasn't able to find anything of what they were able to prove. So we're not even going to go down that road because they did say apparently to the lawyer, in the lawyer's words, said that they could prove it. But I was never able to find anything that would have been evidence to prove that he was possessed at the time of the killing. So after that conversation, his lawyer, Manila, attempted to do something that had never been done in the United States ever before, and that was to take up the defense of demonic possession as the reason behind the killing. And he actually is the one who says my favorite quote that I've ever heard that has to do with anything paranormal. It's one of my favorites. Said, quote, "The courts had dealt with the existence of God. Now they're going to have to deal with the existence of the devil."
You can't have light without dark.
You believe in one, you got to believe that the other one exists.
Right.
And I freaking love that quote. So
that's true. What do they say when somebody in jail is like, "Oh, he's changed, he's found God"? Well, that means that he had to have the devil in him at some point.
Yep.
Can't have one without the other.
So his whole thing was, I'm going to present demonic possession as the reason behind the killing. And of course, fueled by the Warrens, fueled by his now defense for Arne, like I said, becomes known as the demon murder trial, the devil maybe do it case. And what he had planned to do was he had planned to travel to Europe, meet with lawyers who had been involved in 2 similar cases, though neither went to trial, and talk with them to kind of get, inside scoop, if you will. He also planned to bring in exorcism specialists from Europe, and even threatened to subpoena the priests who oversaw David Glatzel's exorcisms if they didn't cooperate with the defense. Now,
Catholic Church didn't want none of that subpoena bullshit.
Now, I will say, from the spokesman of the diocese, they will confirm that the priests that referred the Glatzels to the Warrens and 3 other priests were involved in an exorcism for David Glatzel, the lesser ones.
That was their cooperation, so they weren't subpoenaed. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we sent somebody out there. That's what they said. What he did, we don't know. We sent somebody there, though.
Yeah. And but also was told they were never to discuss or talk about it in interviews, and especially with interviews with the police.
Well, you're not supposed to discuss an exorcism.
No, I know.
That's
I know.
all,
I'm just saying, like, what they were told and all that stuff. But yes, they have confirmed that there were 4 altogether. The 3, and then the pastor that made the connection with the Warrens, that they were all present at the exorcism of David Glatzel's. But nothing else. There's nothing else along that. So Manila, Lawyer Manila. I'm call him Lawyer Manila. That sounds fun.
Mr. Folder.
Mr. Manila Folder decides to go to the judge and say, hey, he's not guilty by virtue of demonic possession. Mm-hmm. And the judge basically says, what the fuck? You serious, dude? And he argued back to him and said, look, no defense can ever exist in a court of law. Because there is no evidence, and it would be irrelative and unscientific to allow related testimony as that such.
But you asked me to put my hand on a Bible and swear to tell the truth, so help me God.
I knew somebody was going to bring that up.
There's no evidence of that either, that you can tangibly put into a court of law and said, look at this. You can't. In fact, I think you'd be more easily able to prove evil than to prove good. There are, I mean, not to get off on a religious kick here. I'm just saying, you can't say there's one without the other. You can't have light without darkness.
That was the only thing that I had about why he would not let him use, not guilty by virtue of demonic possession as a defense. Because I immediately thought the same thing. And when I read it, I was like, somebody on this podcast is going to bring this up. I'm not even going to have to say it.
Because you know me, I like to argue. That'd be the first thing I'd go for.
And that's so true. You lay so help me God, but you can't bring the devil into the courtroom.
But you're bringing God into the courtroom.
Yeah.
So if one is welcome to be there and to be used as the sign of good, why can't one be as the sign of evil? It's like, hey, here it is. It doesn't sound right.
I mean, I hate to be devil's advocate here, no pun intended, but I mean, but they're trying to prove that an entity committed a crime. It's what they're trying to prove.
That makes no difference to me than if they say, let me out on parole because I've found religion. I've found God. I'm a good person now. Yeah, you found him right there in that book right before you walked in this parole room, says, hey, I'm cured. Let me out.
But I think when the judges...
he did either.
Well, that's the thing is, but someone finding Jesus is different than someone committing a crime.
Oh, wait a minute. Because I could say I find Jesus and go out and be an asshole right on the street and do something else really bad.
But you're not being put on trial for finding Jesus.
But you can't prove I found God either to let me out.
But you're not trying to prove in a court of law that an entity committed a crime.
If I'm trying to prove for a parole board, I'm trying to prove that I learned something.
Jesus is in me, Lord. But you can't, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you can't, they're trying to prove in a court of law, like unequivocally without a shadow of a doubt, that an entity committed a crime.
Okay.
And I think one of the quotes that the judge had was, I'm not going to say that I don't think it exists. I don't think that possession is a thing. He's like, but I just can't see how you can prove it in a court of law. So the judge, even himself, believed that it could be possible, but he's just saying, like, within the confines of the court of law, in front of a jury of your peers, how are you going to prove that?
So if it is possible, Why not give me the opportunity? I can cite you the changes, and the changes, you can have a case based on circumstantial evidence. If there are enough circumstances that are built up, that can lead to a beyond a reasonable doubt trial. So again, let's see the circumstances. Good person, good man, done everything, protecting this child. All of a sudden, snaps, changes, things are. You know what? You tell me some son bitch growling at somebody, I'm gonna go, yeah, there's something wrong with him. So,
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying at
what
that
the hell
point.
are we arguing about?
Well, listen, what I'm saying is I'm thinking I can see where the judge is coming from, what the judge is thinking is, even though he himself is like, okay, I think it's possible, but within the confines of the statutes and codes of law that we have, how can we prove this in a court of law?
And so everything has to have a precedent set in order for it to be accepted, and someone has to be the first. And if you're telling me to swear on the Bible and you're bringing God into it, if you're bringing in one, you have to bring another, else it's not fair. So let me try to prove it. What
I'm saying though is I think that it was up to the judge's discretion, because the judge himself
and the judge said, I don't disagree. Therefore, it should have been admitted. The fact that the judge said that, it should have been allowed.
I think he was just saying technically for the purposes of the court. Like I'm not saying that it doesn't exist.
But you're in charge of the court, are you not?
Yes and no. Like, because
yes, you are, because you can throw out evidence, you can decide what's there and what's not.
You are also bound by law. Like, what does law say? You are bound by the law. You are sworn.
It's never been said. It's a new precedent. You can set a new precedent all the time. It happens all the time.
But I think too.
Just whether or not you have the balls.
Here's what I think. This is what I think about him. I think maybe, the media circus around it. He didn't necessarily want to have to deal with that, so he just kind of threw that out immediately. Number one. Number two. He himself did not think that there was, without a reasonable shadow of a doubt, that they could prove that within a court.
You got to give him a chance. You can't assume that's going to happen.
Within the confines of a court of law, that's what I'm saying. I think that maybe he thought that. So maybe he was like, we're just going to get rid of this altogether. Let's look at like what we know we can prove as far as like facts. Here's what happened. So I think that's maybe where he was coming from. Because like I said, I don't disagree with you. I understand where you're coming from. But I think maybe as far as he goes, that's maybe what he was thinking.
And I'm going to tell you right now, if I was that lawyer, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to overturn the conviction on appeal, because you were prejudiced against my religious beliefs, because I believe in the damn devil.
Well, I don't know if that would hold any water.
That would be what I would throw up on my appeal. You made me swear on the Bible, and I don't believe in the Bible. So therefore, I have a religious prejudice against me right from the start, going right out of that.
What I'm saying though is I don't think that holds any water.
To argue.
Like, because you can't. He didn't say, he wasn't throwing it out because he wasn't being prejudiced against the religion. He was saying, "Hey, I think this could exist. However, I don't think we can prove this without a shadow of a doubt in a court of law." He wasn't being prejudiced, so I don't think that appeal holds water as far as that goes.
And that would be for the jury to decide, because you better believe I would go at that from every direction. Because if I could, and again, just the fact that the judges said that while I think that could exist, that alone should give me the opportunity to try it. Then give me the opportunity, because if this is genuinely what has happened. If I can show you A, B, C, and D, and even if it's circumstantial, if I can get you enough, I've got priests saying shit ain't right over here. I've got priests that have come out. I've got the Warrens who have come out and saying, look, this is what we know. This is what we've experienced. And I'm going to tell you, this is not right. There is something wrong with this man. And if this man had never had a problem up till then. Okay, I'm going to ask you, Brian, you ever met somebody who's just truly evil and you know they're truly evil?
Oh, yeah.
You know there's something way wrong with them?
Oh, yes.
Little bit of the devil in them.
Yes, but what I'm saying to you is I agree with you. I'm with you on this. I'm just saying, as far as what their line of thinking was, this is what I think that they were thinking. Because I agree with you. Yeah, give me a chance to prove it. Because if I have all this evidence that can prove, hey, this person has never exhibited any sort of behavior like this before. This person does not have any mental disabilities or any sort of. There's nothing mentally going on with this person. This person, by all means, is a sane person who had no previous signs of aggression, like never hurt a fly a day in his life. And, and even since then, this person hasn't, which not trying to jump ahead, this person is still like a pretty gentle person. I'm with you on that. It's just, I just don't think that they could have, I think that was the line of thinking the judge was going through. So give me a reason. Let me prove it. Let me argue it. But
it sounds slightly prejudicial to me. That's all.
I just don't think it's. I don't think it's prejudicial. I really don't. I just think it's just the judge trying to come up with the most logical thing he can think of in order to get this case to move along. But
that's not the judge's job.
It is and isn't.
The judge's job is to mitigate and decide. Well, again, it kind of is, because he has to decide what goes on in the courtroom. But again, if you think that if I'm presenting to you and telling you I can make this case, I can make this case. If I'm bringing this crazy crap up, you better know I got enough to back it up, because I know you're going to question me. He could have said, "I'll allow it. However, you can't change to insanity halfway through."
No, yeah,
that would have been all it would have taken.
Yeah, I mean, I would be interested to see how the defense was going to prove that.
Where do we get this transcript?
Like I said, I would be very interested to see like the case that lawyer had prepared, to see what evidence he had, because like I said,
he wouldn't have brought it if he didn't think he could defend it.
And also a detail about this case: this lawyer took this case pro bono. He did not charge a dime. He thought that he had
defended
enough
Arnie
evidence.
for killing Bono pro bono.
But like, he had enough evidence that he thought like, hey, I can prove this in a court of law, and the judge just didn't let him do it. So I understand where the lawyer's coming from, but I also understand where the judge is coming from. That's all I'm saying.
Blake, did you have time to get you a soda?
Damn, that was some delicious tea, guys. Yes, I did. I got me a nice little.
You were right. You're right, Blake. It was going to be me and Ryan that went at it on this one.
That was a
good discussion, Ryan. Thanks. That was awesome.
Yeah. I was just taking it in. I was taking in the tea and eating my cherry sours over here. No, excellent points. Oh my God, that I wasn't about to interrupt that. Wow, y'all.
Sorry, guys.
No, I love it when you two go back and forth, because you both really do have opposing views on some things, and it brings out the best of y'all's two intellect.
It's really hard because Ryan's really smart, so a lot of times my hamster's running really fast trying to keep up.
Ryan is extremely smart.
Yeah, and my hamster was like, God, can't you say something else, because I'm getting real tired of here. Like,
y'all don't make my head any bigger than what it already is. It barely fits into the screen as it goes. So
The light went out on me. The devil made me do it. The devil turned off the light. Yeah.
In speaking of what Shelley was talking about at the end of her portion of it, is switching to insanity straight in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. He had to change tactics, because obviously the lawyer had changed tactics, because obviously this wasn't going to fly. So what they chose to do was to imply that Arne Johnson acted out of self-defense. Mm-hmm. Now, because of this, the jury was not legally allowed to consider at all whatsoever the demonic possession as a viable explanation. No insanity, no nothing like that. It really is just going to be a self-defense.
True self-defense, which they actually could have argued as well, because Mr. Bono grabbed the little girl, and now again, why weirdo Mr. Bono decided to grab the child? That I probably would have come at him too, but I wouldn't have stabbed him. But I probably would have come at him too, grabbing a little 9-year-old kid.
Yeah.
But again, you have to prove that he actually did something. Again, I don't know. I'll take off my prosecutor's hat.
So he goes on trial with self-defense. He pleads guilty to that, and after all the evidence, like I said, there's not much in the actual trial itself that is documented, because I think what ended up happening was, after he switched to it's self-defense, it just kind of fizzled out, because it's like, okay, it's another murder trial. That's what the media said, basically, because they weren't allowed to bring in possession at all.
No more sensationalism.
Yeah, there wasn't any sensationalism behind it. And so after all the evidence and testimony was brought in, the jury deliberated for 15 hours over 3 days, and he is convicted. He was only convicted, though, for first-degree manslaughter.
Manslaughter, not murder. Yes, so manslaughter, unintentional.
Correct. Basically, that it was homicide through his recklessness or negligence, or a crime of passion. Even
it was an unintentional murder, but murder was yet the result. Manslaughter, right?
Yeah, and so he ended up being sentenced to 10 to 20 years, and he actually ended up only serving 5 of those years and was released.
You know what? He actually, for what he did, he actually appears to have relatively a kind face.
Mm-hmm. And by all accounts, he's a very kind person. Like, even to this day, like no one has a bad word to say about him. He's just a kind, good dude. He just happened to be caught up in some sort of strange circumstances.
Yeah. And he and Debbie, actually, this is Debbie.
Oh,
older.
That's where the demon lies right there. Good Lord, Debbie.
Damn, Shelly.
Damn.
I'm sorry, Debbie scared me when you popped old Debbie up there.
Debbie and...
God.
It did. It scares me. Sorry. Debbie looks more demonic than old Artie does. And Debbie's in green, which is a sign of the devil's jealousy. Interesting. Interesting color choices.
So Debbie and Arnie end up getting married, and they end up living out basically their lives. Now Debbie, I cannot find where Arnie's at. I could not find anything about where he's at to this day.
He probably changed his name.
He could have. Now, I do know that Debbie has passed away. I do know that. But I have searched and I can't find any inkling as to where Arnie is to this day and what has become of Arnie. Now, he may have passed as well, and I just haven't been able to find it. But I feel like that would have made some type of news, of some sort. So
I bet he changed his name. I bet he legally had his name changed.
So real quick to wrap this up on the aftermath of this trial is a little bit interesting because they released a made-for-TV movie basically on NBC that tanked, and it was entitled "The Demon Murder Case," but in 1983, Gerald Brittle published a book that was co-written with the help of Lorraine Warren, and that included a lot of all the details of David's possession and the murder of Alan Bono, and they entitled that "The Devil in Connecticut," and it's supposedly a really good book. I have not been able to get my hand
I've read that
on the damn book.
That's an old book. That's been out for a while.
It has, 1983. Now, Lorraine claims that with this, the profits were shared with the family, but the family has stated other words. We're just going to say that. And everything was fine until they republished this book in 2006. Now, when they republished this book in 2006, Carl Jr., David's brother, and David ended up suing Gerald Brittle and Lorraine Warren. Ed had already passed away. And the book publishers for violating their rights of privacy, for libel, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Because what they said, Carl comes forward and says, look, I was made out to be in the book that I had committed criminal and abusive acts against my family. The possession was a hoax made up by the Warrens, and to exploit my brother's mental illness from which he's since recovered. And that the book painted him as a villain. He lost jobs, he lost friends, he had to move, all that kind of stuff. They said that none of the profits were shared with the family. The only reason why they agreed to do the book is because they were told by the Warrens that it would make their family millionaires. But Lorraine,
because nobody's going to hire you now. So, hey, if you let us do this, then guess what? You're going to make some money. You're not going to have to worry about it.
Yeah. But Lorraine defends it. She stands up and she says, no. It was me, Ed, and she says 6 priests who were involved in the incident and agreed at the time that David was possessed. She actually is quoted as saying it wasn't, quote, it wasn't just Ed and I. The cream of the Catholic Church was involved and there was tremendous documentation. And the author of the book also says, look, I've got over 100 hours worth of interviews with this family that I'd be glad to produce. He hasn't. And they signed off on it before it was put to print. So, and the father, Carl Glatzel Sr., he denies ever saying that his son was possessed. Now, Arne Johnson and Debbie both are on the Warren side. I mean, they're like, no, it was.
They said there was legitimate possession.
And Debbie kept a diary of daily occurrences of what happened. Like, she has everything written down that happened and maintains that.
Yeah.
Has that diary ever been produced?
Not to my knowledge.
I believe it has though. Yeah, because if you watch the documentary on the Discovery Channel, they have like she typed it out. They have her excerpts from the diary.
That's right.
But was the diary ever found, or was it just excerpts that they had? They didn't actually have the complete diary.
I believe it's the whole diary because she didn't take it was a diary that she took of all the events because she said whenever the Warrens came or whenever priests came, she was advised to keep track of what exactly is happening.
Yeah.
So
my question number one is that if it's typed out, not a lot of people had typewriters in their homes. I think I would give a little more credibility to a handwritten daily with perhaps a different ink pen color every day or a different writing utensil. But to type it out every single day,
she does. She also has audio recordings that she took. She taped every day.
Audio, yep.
Whenever something would happen, she would start running audio, and there are audio recordings of him screaming and saying all kinds of crazy shit.
So that's what I was going to say. If you're interested in trying to hear some of those, they may be on you. I tried to search for them. I could not find them to try maybe be able to play. They're out there somewhere, but I will tell you where you can find them. You can actually find them at the end of Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. They actually play it. The actual recording of his voice. No, and it's not a child. I'm going to tell you right now, it ain't a child. It is not a child.
Nope.
That voice that's coming out is deeper than mine, and it sounds evil as shit.
But that's still emanating through the body of a child,
right?
Yeah,
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
But if you want to hear it, I'm sure it's fascinating. That is not something I would want to listen to.
Yeah.
That's just me. Because it involves a kid.
If you're in for something that's a little more Hollywoodized, go out and watch The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. It does have quite a bit that is correct in it as portrayal to, like, the rental property of the waterbed David
as the story is known to be.
Yes. Now they're going to exaggerate just a hair.
Punch it up a bit.
Yeah, and of course, there's a whole nother.
Our power just was flipped. Sorry.
Oh,
Here it goes again.
God.
I'm losing power.
That's okay. we're almost done at this point. But anyway, so yeah, I urge you to go watch that, and and there's also on Discovery Plus, there's The Devil Made Me Do It by Shock Docs, which is actually really good.
Fantastic.
Well. So
yeah, that was very good.
But that's the story of The Conjuring 3, or I guess you could say, The Conjuring 3.
The Arne Johnson story.
The trial of Arne Johnson, the Devil Made Me Do It case. So, yeah, I urge you to go watch that documentary for sure. And if you just want to have fun, go watch The Conjuring 3. It's a lot of fun. But I hope that y'all have enjoyed this crazy of an episode. I have to personally thank my co-hosts here, Ryan and Shelly, for giving us a wonderful 15-minute debate.
Did it really go that long?
No, I think it was about 10.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, maybe. Ryan and I have argued way longer than that, so it's okay. Debated way longer than that. We didn't argue, so our feelings are hurt.
True.
We don't argue. We debate.
Yeah, we debate pretty passionately, but at the end of the day, we both know I respect his opinion. I don't know if he respects mine or not, but
hey, I'll say right now. Sometimes she comes
there's
up
nothing in there.
Because she comes up with stuff sometimes that I don't think about, and I'm sure I do the same.
Yeah,
she doesn't think about.
See, me and Ryan can't debate because me and Ryan agree on way too much stuff. So, well, y'all, we hope y'all have enjoyed this week's episode of Arne Johnson and The Devil Made Me Do It case. Remember, whatever social media channel you're watching us from, we're not just on that social media channel. We are across the board. So make sure you're following us across the board because we don't utilize all channels for everything. So you might be missing out on a couple of things. On top of that, please remember we do have our Old Park Hotel tickets that are on sale. It is down to just Saturday the 8th and just 10 tickets only. And there are only 7 available. That is it. We dropped the October 7th, which we've made that important announcement
special request, which we can't talk about.
Yes.
And also be on the lookout for the end of this next week. If you've wanted to come to the Gregg County Historical Museum, we will have those tickets live by the end of this week as well. I know I've already had a couple of people asking about that. So just wanted to shove that out there to you. And Shelly, take it away.
And if you want to hear what we really talk about, not just what we put on the show, you can go and become a Patreon member. It's $5 a month. There are no tiers. You get everything for $5. Spirits with Shelly. I'm sorry, what?
I said it's crazy.
It is crazy sometimes. Bedtime with Blake and Ryan's reviews. And like I said, if you want to know what we really talk about, come become a Patreon member. $5 a month.
Yeah.
How about it, Ryan? Where else can they do?
Please go to Spotify. Please go to Apple Music or wherever you get your podcast. Rate and review us. Please, please, please. It boosts our signal. We can do more if we get more people, and tell people about us and tell them to tell 2 friends and you tell 2 friends. And also come see us this weekend at Paracon in Oklahoma, and it is in Sulphur, Oklahoma, right, Shelley?
Yes, at the Artesian Casino and Spa. So you know what, Texas people, you're going to drive to Oklahoma to gamble this weekend. Don't stop at that first one right over the border. Go ahead and come up to the Artesian. Come on up a little farther because you ain't been there, and it's beautiful. And come up and gamble there, and come up and come swing through the Paracon. Come meet the Tennessee Race Chasers.
Absolutely.
Come say hi to us.
Come say hi to us.
Yeah. Hey, we got somebody who's going to come see us. They said see y'all.
Yay!
Awesome. Nice.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, come on. We can't wait to see you.
Absolutely. We are going to be speaking, so don't miss our chance to
Child,
on stage.
We're going to be live with a microphone in front of people. They're going to have to, oh my Lord, there ain't going to tell them what can happen because we won't be sitting in a chair. They're going to let us, we're going to be free range.
Yep.
We're going to be roaming. They'll tell what's going to happen.
Yep. Well, y'all, thanks so much for joining us this week for Everything Vaguely Paranormal. As always, my name is Blake Smith, and for my partners in paranormal, Miss Shelley Pruitt and Mr. Ryan Roberts, we will see you next Tuesday. Bye, y'all.
Bye, guys.